Hey everyone, it's Mark here, and today I'm going to show you a few tricks I use in my classes which have really helped my students get really high scores in the IELTS writing task 2. I don't just mean 6 and 6.5, this has helped students get 7 and 7.5. Now the good news here also is that this will help you with your speaking test. In that case, I've seen students go get scores 6.5 and 7, sometimes even 8 or 9 on their speaking test. Now, I admit that is rare, but it can happen with what you see here today. So we're looking at getting a 7 mostly in writing, task 2. That's the essay. These ideas will help you with general, and they're going to help you with the academic test as well. In this video, we're focusing on body paragraphs. We did a video on the introduction, which you can go back and look at. You'll see the introduction here briefly. By the end of this video, you will have some ideas about how to extend your ideas, and that's very important. How do you extend your ideas in writing, but also in speaking? And that's really important if you're trying to get a 7 or 8. Are you telling me as much as possible? And are you telling me useful information to explain your opinions or your ideas? This isn't a problem that happens with a lot of classes. They focus on grammar and structure, but they don't help students learn ideas. In my English classes, we do a lot of reading, we watch a lot of videos, and we talk about them so that if my students get a question about any topic, they either have the knowledge or they have enough practice developing an idea that they can answer these questions. Secondly, I'll show you how if you develop and extend your ideas, it's going to lead to better grammar. Now, I'll be a bit more careful here. This is going to improve complexity, okay? This is going to force you to use more complex grammar. If, which, although. If you just focus on accurate grammar, you're not going to help use these complex structures. Another point I will talk about, I want you to avoid some of these pieces of language. Like, first of all, secondly, they are not wrong. Don't misunderstand. If you're trying to get a 5 or a 6, they're fine. But to get a 7 or an 8, they're not that important. They're not wrong, but they just don't matter. And hopefully, most importantly, I'm going to help you discover your voice. I'm going to help you, become a better writer, but also become, your best writer. All right? I want you to when you're writing, I want you to enjoy it. I want this to be a fun thing. And that's the most important thing that we're going to look at today. Now, just to review, this was the question we were looking at. Global warming is one of the most serious issues that is facing the world today. And then it asks, what are the causes of global warming? And what can governments and individuals do to tackle the issue? Now, if you want to go back and look at this, we go into more detail here, but I talked all about the cause, effect, and solution in the last video. So these are just some of the notes that I made for writing this essay. Now, again, if you're looking at these ideas like one cause of global warming is private car ownership or deforestation. Remember, where do these ideas come from? Well, they come from videos I watch. They come from articles that I read. If you want to learn more about this topic, and you should, take the time to look. Watch this video, for example, by Al Gore about climate change, or watch this video about Uber and their plans to improve the environment. It's really going to make it a lot easier if you watch videos, if you read about these topics, and then when you get a question, you can answer it easily. That's the most important thing, is the more you know, the easier this test will be. Now, we'll take a quick look here at what we did in the previous video. We have our thesis, okay? This is a map. You've identified there are 2 main causes of global warming, and we've written here burning fossil fuels and deforestation. All right, then there's the solutions, investing in clean technology and reducing our consumption. Now, that first sentence in the introduction, or sorry, not first sentence, but that last sentence in the introduction sets your position. It makes what's coming clear. And more importantly, it shows me what's coming in order. So I said two main causes, all right, fossil fuels, then deforestation. So when I get to my first body paragraph, here's what I'm going to write first. Fossil fuels are the biggest problem. All right, now it's always important that your first sentence in your body paragraph is clear, and my advice is keep it simple. Right? It's a problem, it's bad, or it's good. Keep it simple. If that first sentence is complicated or unclear, then the whole paragraph might fall apart. Or even worse, you don't know what you're going to say. All you need to do is say, this is the problem, and be clear. It's the biggest problem. And then everything after that should support this. And I'll show you how I've done that. So first of all, I've said fossil fuels are the biggest problem. Now, we have to explain it. But how do you extend this? I'm going to show you something that I give my students that helps them develop their ideas. Right here. Now, this flowchart is going to give you a map, not just of how to think, but of how to organize your language. So I've given my opinion, and I've said that fossil fuels are the biggest problem. All right, so that's my opinion. I haven't written, I think, or in my opinion. Again, they are not really important if you're trying to get a 7 or 8. Then, what am I going to do? Explain why. All right, I support it. What's the main reason they are the biggest problem? Because they are the biggest problem. Why? Because of this. Then, this is the important part. Extend that idea. Most people, when they write or when they give answers in the speaking test, they get here, they get to number 2, and then they stop. But they haven't really developed the idea. So think about this. What is the cause-effect relationship? Mostly we're thinking about the effect. Okay? So burning fossil fuels, what does it lead to? All right, what's the consequence of it? Now this one's probably the most important one you can practice, and you're going to see a lot of it in the sample I've written. Other ones, why would other people disagree? Okay, why do some people not agree that fossil fuels are the biggest problem? And then explain why that is wrong. I'll show you an example of that very soon. Also, what happens if we don't or if we do? What happens if we continue to burn fossil fuels? What will happen if we don't burn fossil fuels? And finally, I'm going to skip over this one, but finally, so what? At the end of your paragraph, explain why this is important. Now, this is something that's also extremely important, right? Your conclusion isn't at the end of your essay. The conclusion is at the end of your paragraph. In fact, if you conclude your paragraph, it's more important than writing a conclusion. And I'll show you how to conclude a paragraph in just a few minutes. Now, let's take a look at a paragraph example. So I have this first sentence here. Fossil fuels are the biggest problem. Okay, why? Because they put trillions of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere every day. All right, so this is the important thing for 2 reasons. One, I've explained why, right? I didn't just say, yeah, they're a big problem, but I said, this is why. This is what they do. Now, also, this is an important thing I always like to highlight, is connecting your sentences. Again, you don't need to have, first of all, or for example, but just this referencing word, they and it. They are probably the 2 most important words that you will use in writing. Next, what's the cause-effect relationship? So I said they put trillions of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere every day, comma, raising, or which raises global average temperatures, all right, and causing the environment to act unpredictably. 2 things. Where do I get this information? How do I know this? I read and I watch a lot of news reports. Okay, so that's where I got the information from. Then it's easy. I have effect, ideas I can put in here. And again, this brings me to that better quality grammar, which raises global average temperatures and which causes the environment to act unpredictably. Now I've just added a simple one in here. Because it is cheap, countries like the USA and China still rely heavily on coal for their energy needs. All right, again, so what? What's the effect? Resulting in increasing emissions. Now, again, this is a nice structure that you could use very easily, even if you have the test tomorrow, comma, resulting in. If you have the test tomorrow, you might want to think about this. Although generally I say this is information, these videos will help you if you have the test in a few weeks or better, a few months. But again, a nice piece of grammar that's very easy to incorporate into your writing. Also, we talked about the devil's advocate. Why would people disagree with this opinion? All right, so here's an example of how to incorporate that information. Although there are cleaner options, like solar energy or more efficient forms of nuclear power, so I've admitted, there are cleaner forms of energy. However, they are not widely available yet. Now, please keep in mind I did say however, but when you have although, you should not be saying but or however here, little grammar point. So again, I say yes, there are cleaner options, however, they are not widely available. Again, this is that kind of grammar structure you need to be aiming for a 7 or higher. Okay, so if you try to use although and you make a grammar mistake here, that's great. You can still get a pretty good score. And also, it's extending the idea. If you want to get a 7 or 8, it's really important that you're still extending these ideas. And they're connected, all right? So the whole thing here is connected. And I haven't had to give multiple examples. I'm just extending one idea. Last sentence, okay? What happens if we don't? Or what happens if we do? Again, you just wrote this really nice paragraph. Now conclude the point. So what? If we continue to burn fossil fuels for energy, the problem will only get worse. So I've finished my idea. Now be careful with this. You don't want to just write again at the very last sentence, therefore fossil fuels are a big problem, or therefore governments should do something. Really say something that shows how important it is. And again, don't just repeat this sentence. Repeating means you're not adding any new information. It's a waste of a sentence. Give me something new, give me something important. But do not repeat this topic sentence. A lot of times I see people say, therefore fossil fuels are the biggest problem, or something, or they change the words slightly. Again, you don't want to repeat yourself in writing. It just doesn't help your score. I think we have a bit of time to look at another sample, so we'll look at the next one. Now I've said fossil fuels are the biggest problem, so then my next paragraph might say, deforestation also adds excess CO2 to the atmosphere. So again, right, I don't need to say it's the second biggest problem, but I've made it clear why CO2 is a problem. So I just say I don't need to explain CO2 in this paragraph. And again, I explain it. This is because. So I give my position, and then I support it. What is the reason? This is because when trees are cut down, they release the gas into the atmosphere, comma, resulting in a warming of global temperatures. So again, you see here, comma, resulting in. If you learn one thing from this video, I would say it should be this grammatical structure, comma, resulting in, or comma, which results in. It's helping you extend your ideas. It's cohesive. You don't need to write first of all. Secondly, for example, you're doing it here automatically. And it's going to bring up your grammar score because this is a complex and less common grammar structure. Again, I wrote here, I explained it further. Again, I'm not moving on to a new point, but I'm explaining it further. Not only do logged trees release carbon dioxide into the air, but trees also remove the gas from the air, producing oxygen, further compounding the problem. So I've used a bit more of a complex piece of vocabulary here, just another way of saying increasing. And again, right, what's the result? Further compounding the problem, or which compounds the problem. complex grammar showing consequence. Now, another thing that I love to teach my students and what really helps them do well on this test is this structure. The more, right? And this example here is a beautiful example. The longer we continue to practice excessive logging, right? Deforestation, excessive logging, comma, the more damage we will do to the environment. So again, very simple piece of grammar, but it is a great way to finish a paragraph. In fact, you could do it a few times because every time you do it, it's going to be different. You might say the longer, the more, or the more, the less. There are so many different ways you can write this grammar structure and they don't look the same. So if you learn a second important piece of grammar to use in your writing, I would say use these comparative structures. All right, so I'm going to stop the video there. I don't want to overload you with information, but look at those two paragraphs and look at those two grammatical structures. They really help you develop your ideas. Now, just something to keep in mind, just as a review here, remember, the first thing you need to do if you want to do well in speaking and writing is develop your ideas. Learn a lot. Read. Watch the news. If you don't know about a subject, just start learning. Ask people. Secondly, if you're trying to get a higher score, you need to not worry about these types of easy to memorize structures, right? First of all. Secondly, for example, again, they're not wrong, but if you're thinking about structure and these connecting words, it's going to prevent you from really developing your ideas in more creative ways. Again, find your voice, all right? Enjoy this process. Clear topic sentences, we talked about that as well. Keep it simple. And then the other thing, conclude paragraphs, all right? If you run out of time or if you're running out of time in the exam, it's more important to conclude your paragraphs. If you run out of time, don't worry about the conclusion. Your conclusions need to be made with the point. We'll talk about that more in a future video. Finally, practice. All right, again, if you have the test tomorrow, this might help you a little bit, but remember, the most important thing is practice your writing and get feedback from someone, a teacher, get feedback from someone who you think has really good English. Get that feedback and then, fix your writing. Anytime you practice writing, that's only 50%. Fixing your writing will teach you so much. And to be honest, if you're planning to go to university in an English-speaking country, Australia, the USA, you're going to spend more time rewriting. So you should probably start practicing that now. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I hope you got some good ideas from this.